Welcome to the Arlington Street Church podcast. Founded in 1729, Arlington Street continues today as a gathering place for progressive people of faith in the greater Boston area and beyond. We are located at the corner of Arlington and Boylston Streets, across from the Public Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.
Please be seated. Good evening. Welcome to Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace. Welcome to the Christmas Eve candlelighting service. We are Unitarian Universalists. Ours is an historic faith with a progressive theology. We affirm the worth and dignity of every being, and that we are all deeply interconnected. We are bound to one another not by creed, but by covenant. And we are called to love with open minds, open hearts, and open hands. Whoever you are, those of all nations, all creeds, all colors, all kinds of love, you are welcome here.
And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And all went to be taxed, everyone into their own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. And there were, in the same country, shepherds, abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you. Ye shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward all people.
I've been thinking about Joseph's failure to make reservations. I've been thinking about the nameless and much maligned innkeeper. While it makes for a great birth story, the lowly manger, the hay, the animals, the humble shepherds, the star, it's also the very first lesson of the Nativity, Jesus' first teaching. Make room. Making room might begin with offering a place at the table. The Thanksgiving table, in the case of Wanda Dench, who in 2016 texted her grandchildren an invitation to dinner and let me know if you're coming, but accidentally invited a stranger. Who is this? 17-year-old Jamal Hinton texted back. Your grandma, came the reply, accompanied by the emoji of the white grandma with the blonde bun. Jamal, who is African American, texted back a picture of himself, and there was an LOL at the mistake. Can I still get a plate, though, he asked. Of course you can, Grandma Wanda replied. That's what grandmas do, feed everyone. And he went. And he returned the next year and brought his girlfriend, Michaela, spending half of Thanksgiving Day with his original family and half with his newfound family. By then, Wanda and Jamal had been texting back and forth and meeting for dinner every few months. Gaining a new grandma as a friend, he says, it's great. This year, the two families sat together at one table. Randall Bourgogne, the grandson for whom the original text was intended, says, now my grandma's everyone's grandma. They're already planning Thanksgiving next year all together. Jamal thinks he'd like to host. Make room. After a series of terrorist attacks rocked Paris 3 years ago, French journalist Sylvain Lepoix tweeted, those who can open their doors, geotag your tweets and use hashtag Porte Ouverte to indicate safe places. Porte Ouverte, open door, was retweeted 760 times, translated for tourists into several different languages, and amplified by international news media. It swelled to over 800,000 tweets, allowing people, says Lepoix, who did not have a gun, who were not rescuers, who were not doctors, to help. Hundreds of people extended their trust, welcomed people into their homes, and built a spontaneous solidarity in the midst of the siege. Make room. It could begin with offering a plate or extending a welcome to ordinary people, frightened strangers, like Jesus' parents. Or maybe it could go something like this. On a Tuesday evening in December of 2011, something happened at the Kmart in Indianapolis. A young father in worn-out boots stood in line at a layaway counter, his 3 children clinging to his legs. He asked to pay something toward their presents, hoping against hope he'd be able to bring them home by Christmas. And then a woman stepped up to the counter. Turning to him, she said, "I'm paying for it." The man just stood there and looked at her and looked at the woman behind the counter and asked if it was a joke. She told him it wasn't, and he burst into tears. The woman proceeded to pay off his order and the layaway orders of toys and children's clothing for 50 more families. Remaining anonymous, she said simply that she was doing it in memory of her husband who had just died. "Remember Ben," she said, transmuting her grief into joy. Edna Depp, the assistant manager, said, "It was like an angel fell out of the sky and appeared in our store." But that wasn't the end of it. Calls from other benefactors began to come in from Kmarts across the company: Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, Missouri, Montana. Kmart says they did nothing to instigate the Secret Santas or spread the word of their generosity. There's no telling that the original extraordinary gift inspired other gifts, but something got into the air. Carl Graff, assistant manager at the Omaha Kmart, says, $50 may not sound like a lot, but I tell you what, for some people, at the right time, it may as well be $1 million. At his store, a stranger paid off the layaway bill for Lori Stern's 4 grandchildren. Lori says that she and her husband live paycheck to paycheck, but now she plans to use the money she was saving for the toys to help pay for someone else's layaway. Be an angel. Pay it forward. Make room. Can we offer a meal? Open the door? Open our hearts and our wallets to someone less fortunate? Across the centuries, can we heed the teaching of that young rabbi who said, "For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was a stranger, and you took me in"? Can we choose to live as if it really were a commandment to love one another? This is a story from my childhood. One year, Robbie was cast as the innkeeper in the church's Christmas pageant. He was thrilled to be the innkeeper, but learning was very hard for him. He spent the entire month of December memorizing his part, opening the door, saying, "There's no room at the inn," and gesturing to the stable. He practiced doing this in a big, authoritative voice with a dramatic swing of his arm and a no-nonsense point to stage right. He went over and over and over it. And then it's Christmas Eve. The lights come down. Joseph and Mary make their way down the aisle and arrive at the inn. Knock, knock. The door opens, and Robbie fills up the frame, poised for his big moment. "We'd like to rent a room," says Joseph. "There's no room at the inn," retorts Robbie in full character, gesturing definitively toward the stable. He nails it. He does it absolutely perfectly. Sadly, Joseph and Mary turn away, heads bowed with sorrow and fear. Robbie stares after them. There's a long pause. And then Robbie steps through the door. "Wait! You can have my room." There were some people who thought the Christmas pageant was ruined that year. What do you think? What about making room for forgiveness? If you've gotten really good at forgiveness, I'd like to meet you. Abba Agathon, a desert monk of the early Christian church, said that when he sat down to pray, he was most likely to be distracted by unresolved anger, old grudges against those who had wronged him, and schemes of retaliation and revenge. He said, and I love this, prayer is warfare to the last breath. In the late 1960s, Susie and Hector Black were working with the Quakers in a very poor neighborhood in Atlanta. An 8-year-old named Patricia came to play at their house to escape the chaos of a family fractured by alcoholism and poverty. She started spending the night on occasion, and then eventually she stayed for good and became their daughter. Patricia grew into a beautiful young woman, graduating with highest honors in art from Fisk University. She went on to earn a master's degree in library science and went to work in the children's room in the Atlantic Public Library with young people who were as neglected as she had been. One night, a crack addict broke into her home looking for things to steal. He tied her up. She told him there was food in the fridge and where to get help with his drug habit. He told her to put bars on the windows in the back of her house and always to leave a light on. And then he left. She must have thought she was safe. But later that night, he returned out of his mind on crack and killed her. Susie and Hector were devastated. Hector says these visions of what had happened to Trish would come crashing in on me. They would come and haunt me no matter where I was or how beautiful it was around me. It was like he had control over me and was pushing my head in the mud. My first instinct was that he was a monster. He was no human being. He deserved no compassion from me. And then I wanted to know what had made it possible for him to kill my child. Little by little, I learned about his life. His name was Ivan Simpson. He was born in a psychiatric hospital. Later, his mother tried to kill him. There was no one for this little boy. It wasn't that I was trying to excuse what he had done, but I felt for him as another human being suffering. In the courtroom, Hector was thankful. He's so hard of hearing that he couldn't hear a lot of what was said. Susie noticed that they had a lot of friends who had come to support them. There was no one there for Ivan Simpson. No one. Hector was invited to make a statement. He said that Patricia wasn't their daughter by any claim of birth, but by every claim of love, God's gift to their family. They had buried her on their farm. The words on her tombstone say, "All the darkness in the world cannot extinguish the light of a single candle." Hector concluded, "I don't hate you, Ivan Simpson, but I hate with all my soul what you did to my daughter." And then he says, "It was almost as if two hands were on my shoulders, and I turned around and faced him when I said my last words. I wish that we might find God's peace. And I wish this for you also, Ivan Simpson." And our eyes met for the first time. Tears were streaming down his cheek. I will never forget the look, like a soul in hell. As he was being let off to jail, life without parole, he asked to speak. Still in tears, he said, "I am so sorry for the pain I caused." And he said it again, "I am so sorry." That night, Hector couldn't sleep. Ivan was a man off the street, a man had had nothing Nothing, he said, but his apology. And with those words, he'd asked me to forgive him. Susie and Hector got together with other people who had lost loved ones to violence. One woman whose brother had been killed 15 years before was as angry as if it had happened yesterday. Hector says, "I knew then that was no way to live. When you hate, you take poison and expect the other person to die. Anger and revenge hold you in the past. Forgiveness can free you to the future." The blacks decided to visit Ivan in prison. It was something, Hector says, that they needed to do. So we sat down together and talked for 2.5 hours. Because I'm almost deaf, I was sitting very close to him. He was unshackled. And when it got time for us to leave, he stood up, and I did too. And then we had our arms around each other. It was an unbelievable moment that I could have my arms around the man who murdered my daughter. But forgiveness is possible, even for the worst among us. And I do believe, God knows, we all need forgiveness. Hector Black. Can we make room for forgiveness? Beloved spiritual companions, let's make room at the table and give thanks. Open the door to make room for strangers. Open our wallets. Be an angel. Pay it forward. Can we choose to live as if it really were a commandment to love one another? Let's toss the script and make room in our hearts. Let's make room in our lives to forgive. Let every heart prepare. Amen. So it's time for the candle lighting, which has been a tradition in New England Unitarian Universalist churches for over 100 years. Here's some good UU theology. The magic is that the light all comes from one source. You don't light your own candle. It's passed to you by someone else. Once you get it, pass it on. And a reminder, please do not conduct the music with your lighted candle. When this beautiful ceremony concludes and I blow out my candle, please let's all extinguish the flames together. And please leave your candles and candle holders at the door as you leave. Here's the secret. If you go home and light another candle tonight, I promise you it will be the same light. Candle lighting begins with the light of ages, symbolized by our flaming chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism. This light represents the first light, the light of God, which burns in each of us. The chalice is also the repository of our prayers for our beloved community of memory and hope. The memory of those who have gone before us and those who cannot be with us tonight, and hope for those who will come in the future. From the chalice, the light is passed to the Advent wreath. Over the past month, we've kindled the wreath in anticipation of Christmas, one candle each for hope, peace, joy, and love. Tonight, we light all the candles on our Advent wreath, as well as a fifth candle, honoring the birth of the baby Jesus, affirming our belief that each night a child is born is a holy night. From the Advent wreath, The light is passed to candles representing the baby Jesus, traditionally lit by the youngest children in the congregation. The understanding of Jesus as a human being who gave an example of the divine fullness of our human potential is at the heart of our Unitarian Universalist heritage. So tonight, will all the children born to us or welcomed into new homes in the past year or so please come forward with their parents to light these candles and remain up front. Zoe, do you want to come light the Jesus candle? That's a good idea. Come on up. Oh, here comes someone very tiny. Can you guys come to the center aisle and just show off your baby so everyone can see? So, so beautiful. So from the Jesus candles, the light is passed to candles representing the disciples, all those who have passed on to succeeding generations the great gospel which Jesus taught: love one another. Tonight, will members of the Arlington Street Church Prudential Committee, elected church officers, committees, teams, and task force chairs, and young adults please come forward to light these candles and stay up front. You can turn around and show the congregation how beautiful you are, too. Beautiful. And finally, the light is passed to candles representing all the children of the world, our hope for the future. So would all the children, along with a trusty adult, clergy colleagues, their family members, and the staff and staff partners and spouses, both current and past, please come forward to light their candles. And now, this is the moment. Please carry the light into the congregation. Let the light be spread, candle by candle, throughout the church. Let's see if we can light every candle here from that one original flame. When the entire church is filled with light, at the close of silent night, we will raise our candles together, hopefully, joyfully, carefully, and enjoy a moment of stillness and silence, peace. To close, we will burst into joy to the world. May these candles symbolize our commitment to kindle the light of love and service, justice and peace in our country and in the world. And let's join now in singing together, Silent Night. Friends, I'm going to invite you to join hands for the benediction. And I want to acknowledge my beloved colleague, Reverend Fred Small, sitting down here in the front, who wrote the choral benediction, Everything Possible. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings have gone home and the shepherds are back with their flocks, the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to feed the hungry, to heal the broken, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to make peace among all peoples. The service begins when the service ends. Bless your hearts. Merry Christmas. Amen.
Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.